Hello everyone, welcome back to the Pulse of Spokane. My name is Kautzman, your host. Today, the Car Guy Klaus sits down with Gabe Tesch to talk about his race car endeavors. And then, Kent sits down with Darin Watkins from the Spokane Realtors Association to talk about the booming housing market. But first, a word from your sponsors.
Hello, I'm Parker with Hope Neighborhood Coffee Roasters. Hope is a student-led professional coffee production here at the Hunt Settlement. To promote cultural awareness through country of origin studies with coffee farmers worldwide. And third, provide a sustainable funding for the Hunt Settlement education program.
Hi, my name is Roxanne. Please join us to nurture and educate Hutton youth by becoming a monthly coffee subscriber. You can visit us by going to www.huttonsettlement.org and click on the About Us page. Thank you.
The world has changed a lot in 50 years, and Kimley Haygood has changed with it. We still provide our customers with the highest level of service, whether it's financing, construction management, property management and maintenance, leasing, or sales. Our team is here to help you make the best decisions with your real estate.
Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to the Car Guy. My name is Klaus Kinder. I'm your host, and today we've got Gabe Tesch with us. Hello, Gabe. How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Great, thanks. Everything cool?
Yeah, just got back from Europe and just enjoying America again, enjoying my family, and so everything's awesome.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We're going to get back to that in just a sec. Lots happened since you were on the show last in January, hasn't it?
Yeah, so much. I mean, these past 2 months, 3 months have been just insane.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which is not a bad thing. Being a race car driver, you want things to be crazy, so.
Good for you. Good for you. You've done some remarkable things. Talking about remarkable things, the first thing I'd like to bring up this morning is, Sam, we're going to do a little intro to this Pindar Films that, why don't we just show the clip and go from there?
I was 11 years old when I found out that I had brain cancer.
When you come as close as we have to losing a child, being given a second chance with that child changes your entire perspective on life.
Racing can be really scary, however, Gabe loves it.
So many words are left unspoken. I am still standing where the storm is.
Having brain cancer taught me that life is fragile and there are no guarantees for tomorrow.
When the fire starts to burn, when the fire starts to burn, it's time to rise alive again from echoes of the
driving, having this second chance, I don't want an ordinary life. I want to do something extraordinary. My name is Gabe Tesch, and I'm a race car driver.
I'll tell you what, every time I watch that, I want to well up. Tell me about Pindar Films. Tell me what they're doing with your career and how this all came about.
I'll just go straight from the beginning. So me and my dad, we wanted to make like a video just to market myself, you know, because that's a big thing in racing is getting sponsors. So we're like, maybe a video would be a good idea to kind of tell people my story and stuff. And I think just kind of got bigger. People are like, you have such a good story, you should make a docu-series out of it. And then we started working really hard. We found a camera crew. They started following us around to races, taking video, and then we took it to Pindar Films because they're locally here in Tri-Cities area. And they were like, yeah, we want to do this. We want to do a 4-season docu-series on you. And ever since then, they've been following me around. They're over in Europe, and it's been crazy.
That's extraordinary. So basically what they're doing is they're starting out with you as you begin your career, and they're going to follow you through this career, hopefully to the goal that you want to attain, which is getting into Formula One.
Yeah.
And what it takes to get there.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, is just following the race car driver, what it takes to get there, following me throughout the ladders. They're doing 4 years, so this year I'm in Formula 4, then next year they'll follow me in that series and just see where I get, really.
That's amazing. I mean, it really is. And these people have some history. They did a documentary about the Ganassi team going to Le Mans.
Yeah.
And I saw part of that, and what really intrigued me about it, it wasn't just about a race team going to Le Mans or about the cars or about Le Mans. It was really what the drivers give up in their life, their family, their where they live, in order to realize their dream, kind of like you're doing today, living in Britain and running the Formula Ford series.
Yeah, exactly. It's just this docu-series just shows what it takes for a young driver to make to the top, because there's so many things that go into it.
Awesome. And you're also doing pretty well over there, I understand.
Yeah, I think so. We've had a pretty good start to my rookie season. You know, a couple top 10 finishes in a really competitive, tight field, which I think is a pretty good way to start the year.
Let me put that into a little bit perspective for our viewers. This young man has packed up, gone to England on his own, is running a Formula Ford in a series, number one, in a car he's never been in, on tracks he's never been on, competing against other drivers who have been doing this 3, 4, 5 years, sometimes longer, and you're in the top 10 on 2 racetracks, on the 2 races that you've driven in already.
Yeah, so
Woot,
I mean,
okay, woot woot. That's just extraordinary. Your first race in England was at this no-name racetrack called Silverstone.
yeah, it's just Silverstone.
One of the most famous racetracks in the world. Tell us about that. Tell us about what your experience was like at Silverstone.
That was honestly a really special moment for me, because my whole life I've dreamt of going to Europe and racing cars, and to be on Silverstone, a track I watched my heroes race on, coming out of the pits, coming out of the garage, I was honestly emotional, because I've put so much work into this. My family has sacrificed everything, and to be in that moment of what I've dreamt for my whole life, it was really emotional. That's
extraordinary. I mean, it really is extraordinary. I remember I did a little bit of racing in Italy a few years ago. What I remember about it is they drive a little harder over there. They're a little bit more assertive. I'm being nice. I mean, they drive hard. How is it different? How is the racing different here versus there?
Like you said, over there, they're really aggressive. It's a total different style of racing, and that's one thing that's been hard for me, is being able to kind of like put my shoulders up and kind of get used to that. And it's really hard, because they are really aggressive, and they're kind of what's the word? You don't really know what they're gonna do and stuff. And
unpredictable.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Unpredictable, and that's a style that I'm not used to, because American style is really different. And so that's been a challenge, just kind of just giving that confidence of putting my shoulders up and not backing off from these guys, because they will put you in a position where you either we're both going to crash or you're going to back off. And that's the kind of position they put you in every time you go in a corner side by side.
Yeah.
And so it's a hard thing to get used to.
I found that out too. I mean, our first practice session when I raced Mini Coopers in Italy, I mean, it was practice for crying out loud.
Right.
And these guys are banging and bumping, and I'm going, wait a minute, we still got a race to do. you know?
Yeah.
So actually, one of the smartest things that the FIA did when I raced in Italy is they made all the drivers sign a liability release. Any damage to any car, regardless of fault, came out of our pockets. And that basically kept 24 drivers from destroying 24 cars, right?
Right.
Give a race car driver a free car? Yeah, I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Sure, I will. So you've done 2 races over there. You did one at Silverstone. You went to Scotland and did your second race. How was that?
That was a pretty good weekend. We actually showed really strong pace. First race, we got a top 10, another top 10. I think we got 9th or something like that. And second race, we spun. We got off. I just messed up. I went to the inside of this one kid, and while I went to the inside, he went to the inside. Ended up having to avoid an accident, and it was, but that was just a learning experience. You know, these things happen in racing, especially in your rookie season, and I just took that as a learning experience and grew from it, and I'm excited to get back to the next race.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, Tommy Kendall told me years ago, if you don't spin every now and then, you're not trying hard enough, right? So,
Exactly.
But the idea is to keep it on the black top is also, right, kind of
Yeah.
key. You're driving for a guy, his name is Bernard Dolan. And Bernard was a hell of a race car driver in his day.
Yeah, he used to be known as the best upcoming European driver there was, and he was so close to making it to F1, but just kind of what happens to a lot of good drivers is money. You just couldn't be able to make it because he couldn't bring the money to the team, and but he was amazing. He won the Formula Ford Championship. He's the first Irishman to win at Spa, which is a really big deal.
That's a neat track.
Yeah.
And it's very, very technically challenging and very fast.
Yeah. So he used to be an amazing driver, and I'm so lucky to have him as my coach and stuff.
And he's also the team owner. Mm-hmm. You also have 2 teammates, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And who are these guys?
Ben Cochran and Morgan Quinn. Morgan, he's really good. He's a front runner. He's been doing Formula Ford for 5 years. Ben, he's really good too. He's been doing Formula Ford for 2 years now. And so, you know, I'm learning a lot from them because they're really experienced already. You know, it's my rookie year, and they've already got a couple years under their belt. So it's a good pairing, just because I can get their data, and they're already teaching me a lot also.
Do you the 3 of you and your team owner do download sessions after your practices and qualifyings? Are you all together doing that?
Yeah, so after every session, after qualifying, practice, or race, we watch video all side by side. Then we go over data, and those are all big helpful things. Just pick out the places where I'm faster, maybe where he's faster, and we just all put it together and go out there and see.
But if I understand correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're only a couple of tenths off these guys, if that.
Yeah, there's been times where I've been faster than my teammates, and there's been times where they're way faster than me. I mean, we're pretty evenly matched, and so I'm really happy with that, because that's kind of, as a race car driver, you kind of compare yourself to your teammates, where you are with your teammates, because your teammate is your teammate, but it's also your biggest competitor on track. And so, you know, there's times where we're turning the same times where I've been faster, and so it's been good because I've just learned a lot from them.
Yeah, but, you know, if we put this into context, and again, your 2 teammates have been driving 3, 4, 5 years in this series. You've had 2 races in a car you're unfamiliar with on tracks you've never been to, and yet you're just as quick. Somebody needs to sign this kid. I'll tell you what. What are your plans coming up? I know you're going back to England on Monday.
Yep.
And your next race is in England.
Yeah. It's at, I think it's Croft.
Croft?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I'm really looking forward to it. People's been saying it's an awesome fast track. We hit amazing tracks this year. We hit Donington, Brands Hatch, Croft, all these just amazing tracks that used to be F1 circuits.
Yeah. And now after you're flying back Monday, you fly, however, back on June 1st, if I'm not mistaken. and then you're going to do the Spokane Festival of Speed.
Yeah.
You're going to drive a vintage Formula Ford for a gentleman who was on this show a few weeks ago, Bill Simer, his car. Sam, can you bring up the picture of Bill's car? There he is. It's a really, really cool car. And I'm kind of stoked that you're going to be driving it here in Spokane. It's chassis number 1.
Yeah, it's an incredible car. I mean, I fell in love with it right when I looked at it. I love that green. It's just, I love the classic cars. You know, I love classic cars. I've always been around vintage races, and when Bill loaned me his car for the Spokane race, I was so delighted. That was really awesome of him, and I can't thank him enough for that. And
he's a hell of a guy.
Yeah, and to be able to race at Spokane, my hometown, it's just an awesome thing.
That is so cool. That is so cool. We will certainly wish you the best of luck coming up in at Croft. Do you have 1 race or 2 races before you come back to Spokane?
I think just 1.
Just 1?
Yeah.
And you'll fly back here and do the festival, and you'll fly back to England. You're becoming an international superstar.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's one thing that's so hard, is just the time change. We've been flying everywhere, traveling everywhere, and it's tough, but it's all worth it.
Well, I hope the food in Britain has gotten a little bit better.
Yeah, just a bit.
A little bit. All right, man. We wish you the best of luck, and we'll see you when you get back in June.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet, buddy.
Spokane Realtors are dedicated to helping you find the right place to live. We're more than 2,000 strong, small business men and women guiding you through this most important purchase. We're also your neighbors, giving back thousands in volunteer hours to make our community a better place. We believe owning a home helps you live longer, with stronger families and better neighborhoods. That's who we are, ready to help you find your way home. Call one today.
We can't tell you that a Windermere agent drove for hours, rented a boat to cross a lake, then hiked to the Canadian border, just so her client wouldn't miss out on a really good offer for their home. I mean, if we did, wouldn't everyone expect that kind of service? Windermere, we're all in for you.
Hi, this is Larry Myers, normally at River Ridge Hardware, here at Peters Hardware, where I've been blessed to be able to buy it. Initially started in 1934 by Bill Peters, and I was blessed to be able to purchase that from the Peters family. Peters Hardware is located at 12118 East Sprague, enter off of Pines and First. We have all the quality home products that you need, including quality paint now, where we can match any color that you want. We're here for you for all your home needs. Come on by to Peters Hardware in Spokane Valley.
Hello and welcome to the Pulse of Spokane. Kent Adams here. Housing, or lack of housing, big issues here in Spokane. Everything from the homeless to the price of homes today. You think it's leveled off? We're going to talk more about that after this.
Hi, this is Larry Myers, normally at River Ridge Hardware, here at Peters Hardware, where I've been blessed to be able to buy it. Initially started in 1934 by Bill Peters, and I was blessed to be able to purchase that from the Peters family. Peters Hardware is located at 12118 East Sprague, enter off of Pines and First. We have all the quality home products that you need, including quality paint now, where we can match any color that you want. We're here for you for all your home needs. Come on by to Peters Hardware in Spokane Valley.
Well, Well, welcome back. I want to introduce our guest. I usually refer to him around here as CK's dad.
My son.
Your son, yes. Darin Watkins from the Spokane Association of Realtors. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks for inviting
Yeah,
me.
and it's almost time for him to come back from Washington, right?
Absolutely.
I almost said Washington State. University of Washington. Yeah.
Yes. Wrapping up his first year in college.
Oh, yeah. He survived.
He survived. That's a great way of saying that. He survived.
That's okay. My grandson was at GU this year, and I sent him a note the other day because he was one of the managers for the basketball team.
Oh, fantastic.
Yes, and I said, based on all of the ones that are declaring for the NBA, I said, Mark is going to call you up to play next year. He thought that was funny. He said, no, we'll be okay. Actually, I guess a couple of the players that really haven't played are next in line, and he said it will be a good team. All right, so we talked about Gonzaga. We talked about Western Washington. What am I talking about? University of Washington.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now let's talk about real estate.
Yes.
Because I think everybody was expecting that we'd roll into, now that things were getting back to normal, and I'm talking about the pandemic, not other things are normal, that things would level off. Mysteriously, we'd have more housing units. There wouldn't be the demand that we're seeing now, which people are outbidding their neighbors and friends and so forth to buy a house. How has that changed? Is it much better now?
No, I'm sad to say that it's still not very good. And here's what surprises a lot of people. I mean, I've lived in Spokane most of my life, and historically, real estate is, if you look at an average, about 2 to 3%, right? It'll come up about 6-7% one year, but then it stays flat for 2 or 3. It's just one of the cyclic natures of Spokane. But then about 5-6 years ago, we started seeing something completely different. We started seeing supplies drying up, and we started seeing
which really
prices
started
going
before
up.
5 or 6 years ago.
About 10 years ago.
Led up to that.
Right. We started, on the front
Really
lines,
impact.
we track that every month and we report that, and we started seeing big gains. And in the last 5 years, because we have underbuilt, we've underbuilt by so much that people are still having children. Those children are trying to come home and buy a house.
Right.
We have people that are moving here because of where else they're at, they didn't like. And if you add all those things together, it creates a scenario where it's simple supply and demand. If you don't have enough supply, demand will go up, and that's what we're seeing.
Well, let's talk about why we don't have some of that. I know if you want to, if you're my age, turning 76 in another month,
sure,
and you start to look at where you're going to downsize, maybe a condo would be the next place to go, right?
Sure.
Okay, we aren't building condos like we used to.
We haven't built a condo in this market for a good 10 years.
Yeah, and there's a reason why.
Right, because, I hate to say this, but Spokane has become the victim of unintended consequences.
Yeah.
Right, we'll pass laws for a certain help, but then we don't see the consequences of that. So with condominiums, about 15, 20 years ago, there were a number of issues with condominiums that were not built correctly in the King County area, and then they had issues of mold. So as a result, the state imposed a lot of new restrictions on building. And here's one of the quirky parts of the rule was that the homeowners association would take over all liability within 3 years. So guess what homeowners associations do to protect themselves? They automatically sue the contractor for whatever. And as a result, if you want to build a condo today, the insurance policy for each condo is about $60,000.
Oh my gosh.
So if you're building $1 million condos in Seattle, $60,000 seems like a fraction of the cost. Right. But if you're trying to build a $150,000 home in Spokane, it suddenly becomes a non-starter.
Right.
And so the best you've seen is a number of builders are building apartments, 8-unit apartments, luxury apartments, with the idea being that once that moratorium expires for 7 years, and you don't have that risk of the liability,
you can turn them into a condo.
Then you can roll them into condos. But think about that.
But you have to play games.
A big thing on the East Coast is co-ops, where you can actually pay rent towards it, and eventually buy it. And a lot of government entities do that. Well, think about that. Because of that law alone, you've just dead stopped the opportunity for that section of low-income housing in our community. I think the thing that surprises a lot of folks is that the idea that in your lifetime, you will own 3 or 4 homes. Right? Because you start off with a small starter home. You may graduate to a larger home. You might move. But then at some point, you downsize. And you see this a lot where you have 4 or 5 bedroom homes. All the kids have been raised and are gone. And now what do you do with that home? They would like to sell it. But where can you move?
That's my problem. I have a 4-bedroom, 2-bath home. Okay, we've been in it 39 years. Okay.
And that's exactly what the issue. And so that, to just put this in comparison. So 5-6 years ago, you would see in this town about almost 2,000 homes for sale every month. Today, we're down to about 150 to 250 homes.
Oh, wow.
I mean, think about that. And yet we've got more people trying to find those homes. So,
and a lot of that it even continues based on recent activity in the Seattle and Portland areas and other areas that are coming here, especially with larger companies saying you can live somewhere else and zoom in and so forth. And we learned to do that, of course, during COVID.
Sure.
And so
COVID has accelerated the problem. There's no doubt about that. If you can make $150,000 a year, but you're living in a $4,000 a month apartment, and someone says you can come to Spokane and you can buy a home for far less than $4,000 a month. Or even what happens is you have people who
have the drive out of town and through town and everything else.
So they can sell their house in Seattle that costs $1 million for the same house in Spokane that costs $450,000. You know, that's a huge difference. And that's but that said, we are starting to see some of those larger companies doing what's called market readjustments on salaries. So if you're living in Spokane versus they go, well, you don't need that much money, and they're lowering salaries. So that might reduce them.
You know, one of the things I noticed this morning, I was talking with an intern from GU, matter of fact, and she's going to start working for us in August. She's going to be gone for a couple months to Italy and so forth. And I looked out the window at the parking lot across the street, and it's maybe a third full, which is the most I've seen it since we've been here since last July. Okay. And I'm starting to think people are coming back downtown as well. I hear the real estate boom is in for office space is really in the small offices, not the big offices that used to take place.
Maybe, but we're still seeing it's the highest vacancy rate that we have in Spokane. You know, it's double digits for business office space. People have not embraced the downtown yet.
There are other issues that are going on that we need to address in our city council. In fact, I have 2 city council members coming in on Thursday morning here. They happen to be the 2 that have downtown in their district.
This is not a good time to be a council member. I can tell you that right now.
It's not going to be a good time for them. Let me just say that, okay? And they sent kind of a warning to Connor and said, well, we only want to talk about our district, which includes downtown. So they're stuck. They're the 2 council members I can ask some very pointed questions. And I'm very disappointed in our city council, as a lot of the business community is. I'm just going to say that, and I think everybody that knows me knows that. One of the things that just happened is and I forget the name of the group that just is saying no more natural gas. Okay, help me with the terms here.
So there's a number of fronts that natural gas is it's funny because just 5-6 years ago, natural gas was hailed by a number of the environmental communities as a cleaner alternative to oil and
plants
coal. And that we need to switch over to natural gas. And in this community, you know, for 40 years, we've offered incentives to be able to convert because it was a much cheaper, cleaner way of producing electricity than some of the alternatives. Well, now that we've shut down those plants, suddenly now the new target is on natural gas. The challenge for us is that natural gas is a fuel source that's consistent and low cost, and it's very reliable. And in many ways, you know, that but the problem we have in our community is not everybody has that 96, 97% efficient furnace. You have a lot of homes that, believe it or not, are down in the 40s and 50s.
Probably mine.
And so, in some conversations with Avista, they were saying that, we could actually go a lot longer ways in saving electricity and greenhouse gas by just modernizing those areas. And that can do a lot more. But instead, now the building council has decided that they're going to impose a ban on new construction for commercial buildings.
Okay, now this is a non-elected group of people.
That's correct.
Appointed by the governor?
That's correct.
Okay. So we talk about how much control we have as voters. Here we have no control.
I think the challenge for us is that we are, at least in Spokane, well, actually the state, Washington State is the worst state in the entire country when it comes to number of housing units per family. And in Spokane, we are even far worse than the state average, which is awful.
Say that again.
Sure.
Because that's an amazing thing to say.
We're number 50 in the country for the number of housing units per family. And this is new data that just came out as a result of the census that was done. Now we know exactly how many people we have.
Okay.
And in Spokane, we have, the numbers turn out, we have 100,000 families.
Okay.
And traditionally, that, if you get the national average, we should have somewhere in the neighborhood of 112, 114,000 housing units.
Okay.
That's rentals and houses and all that stuff. Yeah. But we only have about 89.
Wait. 89?
89,000 housing units. Because we have underbuilt now for so long that, and so you're like, well, where are people going? Well, we're seeing the highest level of multi-generational homes in American history in our community, right? You have grandparents that, because of COVID, didn't want to go into managed care.
Right.
They're moving back in with children. You've got almost 60% of kids under the age of 25 have moved back in with their parents. Right. You've got brothers and sisters who've moved in together to help share daycare, because daycare is closed during COVID.
Yes.
So it is the largest increase in, like 1 in 4 homes right now in Spokane is multi-generational.
Really?
Right.
Wow.
And so there is a new social need because there's no place to live.
Yes.
Vacancy rates are still around 1%. Because there's a lot of people that are there.
You can't buy and you can't rent.
Can't buy a house, can't get out. They're trying to save money, but they can't save as fast as the housing prices are going up. I mean, we talk about percentages all the time, but let me put a dollar figure to that, because that really helps really get your hands around this. Right. The same house that just 6 years ago cost $179,000.
Right.
The average home, median home price in Spokane for typical 3-bed, 2-bath, less than an acre,
right,
$179,000. To buy that exact same home today is $425,000.
Wow.
Now, have we seen wages increase the same in the 6-year period?
Of course not.
So who gets hurt the most?
Those on the lower wages.
Those have lower wages. Those who are trying to enter the job market, those who are on the edge financially, those who are and more often, it's more often to be a person of color than not.
Right.
And so it just, we've passed a lot of rules about environmental challenges.
Right.
And this last legislative session, we passed even more. And that's a great
thing.
Here
comes that non-intended consequence.
But as every time we add one of those things,
yes,
we then drive the cost even further. So if the number one issue in our community, which we've been arguing, is housing availability, maybe we should focus our attention on those things that can help.
How are you going to do that with the current city council? How are you going to do that with the current Washington legislature?
It's all about priorities, really.
Well, priority is the environment. And I'm not saying that isn't important. However, solving the world climate change issue.
And I don't know that people recognize how clean Spokane is.
Yes.
Right? You look at the major contributors to pollution in our region, right? We don't have major industry that's dumping. We don't have coal plants. We don't have those things. And half of our electricity is produced by hydroelectric dams. Yep. The cleanest. We are literally the envy of the world.
Some want to close down the dams in the state.
You won't see that happen.
Yeah.
You won't see that happen. It was shown this last cycle that if it hadn't been for the Snake River dams, California would have gone into blackouts, not brownouts.
Yeah.
And when that happened, there was federal pressure on our state to say, no, slow down.
I was working with a fellow who happens to be a professor out at Eastern, at Washington University, who said, you won't find anyone who's more of an environmentalist than me, and I embrace nuclear plants. I said, that didn't happen 20 years, 30 years ago. I remember being at Washington Water Power, working there when we had the problem down in Hanford and all of the issues that were because of that and so forth. And here we are.
And what was the Washington Power Supply System called? Whoops?
Whoops,
Yeah,
yes.
We all remember that.
I remember talking to Wendell and Paul Redmond and others there, and that just, the heartbreak that they were having trying to, well, we're part of, but we're not part of, and all of that stuff way back when. And yet now environmentalists are saying, well, maybe it is a clean way of doing it, if it's a safe way of doing it.
Well, as my grandfather used to say, you ought to fill the swimming pool before you jump in it. And I think that there's a lot of great technologies coming down the pike that will reduce our carbon footprint. Electric cars, electricization of housing. I mean, those are great ideas. But the problem is we don't have that supply yet.
Yes.
So, and we ought to focus more on filling the pool before we start.
Absolutely. That's a good line.
Cutting off
remember that.
our supply,
Yes.
our use. So but the housing challenge continues to be. Now, we've just seen in the last couple of months some changes that are being proposed.
Okay.
And they're before the Planning Commission.
Okay.
And see, here's the biggest fight that we have. With the Growth Management Act, which is the law of the land, it basically draws a circle.
Okay.
And says before you can build outside that circle, you have to fill up everything on the inside. Right. Well, now think about that a minute. That means adding homes to neighborhoods and places that already have homes.
Right.
So you're asking neighbors to suddenly
have a duplex next to
Hey, we need to have a
triplex.
fourplex here. Hey, we need to have cottage homes. We need to tear 10 of these old homes down to build 40 new row houses. And it's a great idea in theory
As
to
long
build
as it's somewhere
inside.
else, not in my neighborhood.
I know. And I think that, so some of the changes that we heard, this recent round of proposals, right? For example, they called them accessory dwelling units. ADUs. The old nickname used to be mother-in-law units, but now they've taken on bigger meaning. With so many people living in multi-generational homes, an ADU suddenly becomes much more important. It's a way for example, you could build a small ADU. Maybe you and your wife move out to that 900 square foot, 800 square foot unit. And your children take over the house. It's a way for you then to, still maintain that connection and lifestyle. Your children, you know what I mean? That's the or maybe there's a brother that wants to do, or a sister that wants to, there's a lot of social needs.
Or in my case, I've got a son who lives in Valley Ford, has a couple acres down there.
Right.
Okay.
Or here in town, maybe you live near Gonzaga and you can help backfill your rising taxes and costs by having
Renting
a college
out
student.
space,
And these are, so the societal needs suddenly makes that more important. But already there are a number of neighbors who are weighing in saying, we don't want to change our neighborhood. We don't want to change the face of how we are. And I understand those needs, but at some point we have to decide either how do we work within the confines of the law, or maybe we have to change the law.
Wow, things are changing. Okay, so what advice do you have for young people starting to look at their first homes? Because I'll have to be honest with you. I look at, up on Facebook will come a new house just listed by a realtor and so forth. And it's a good starter home and so forth. And it's got 2 bedrooms, maybe 3. The third best bedroom is probably questionable, but 1 bath, okay? And it's $200,000.
No, $380,000.
$380,000. How does anyone afford that these days? How do we get? Because we know what's best for our community. For any community, honestly, is the more home ownership we have. It's a better community for lots of social reasons and
absolutely
and everything. Okay, we know that for a fact.
It's true.
We want that. How do we help those people get into, until we can change some laws and regulations, if we can even change them.
It's supply and demand. And right
we
now,
better be building.
So the challenge becomes in this marketplace
Yes.
that it is extremely competitive.
Yes.
So so last weekend we had 67 homes as of this recording. 67 homes went on the market on Friday.
Okay.
And by Monday, almost all of them had already sold. And those are,
How do you deal with
you're
that as a
seeing
buyer?
5 to 10 to 15 offers, especially on the moderately priced homes.
Yes.
And so, the problem is we're still seeing a lot of out-of-town buyers. And we gauge that by those who are paying cash.
Yes.
So,
yes.
and it used to be about 1 in 20, and now we're at 1 in 5.
Wow.
People that have cash.
Because they can come out of Seattle and buy a $450,000 home and pay for cash or put such a down that is so reasonable.
So it makes it hard to compete.
Yes.
And especially, so that's what we're seeing, for example, we launched a new program to help first-time homebuyers.
Okay.
That on our MLS system, it literally has links to all the programs that home qualifies for. There's 2,100 first-time homebuyer programs. And one of the biggest in our state is requires you to take a class and you can get a nice down payment assistance.
Yes.
And we're seeing that money isn't being used very often because it's hard to compete. But what it takes is somebody who's very savvy, knows how to recraft that offer. So my advice to somebody who's entering the market, especially,
what the talents
is
are
look
of a
for a good realtor
Yes.
that has
Yes.
that experience in
Yes.
those areas and ask those questions. How would you help craft an offer for us? So, it used to be typically it's more about people you knew.
Yes.
But now there's it almost requires the buyer to have an interview process.
Yes.
Where they're interviewing and asking those questions. How can you best help someone like me?
Right. So you maybe bring in a couple of realtors and sit down with them and ask your friends.
Yes.
Especially friends that are somewhat in your same circumstance.
Yes.
They have a lower income and they did it. How did you do it? What was the experience like? It may be don't go with that realtor.
Sure.
As much as go with that realtor because they understand it. But someone who, the feeling out there is realtors don't have to work right now.
Oh, no, quite the opposite.
Yes, exactly.
Think about that. So if there's 15 offers on a house,
Yes.
that means for you to find a house, you need to make 15 offers.
Yeah.
That means there's a realtor
Yes.
that's making 15 offers.
Yes.
That's doing 15 times the work.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And it's
I was setting you up for
very
that.
difficult.
Yeah.
No, it's a tough market to try to,
it is.
and at the same time, you have almost a tenth of the supply.
Yes.
So it's a very competitive market all around.
Wow. Any other advice for people?
But there are still homes selling.
Yes.
There are still homes that come on the market, they're being sold. The challenge becomes is that
But on Friday night, you need to check.
Well, but the problem is that there's a lag, right? By the time a lot of those publicized services get those listings, they're 72 hours, which typically didn't mean anything. But when you're in this market,
right?
By the time you say, hey, just come on the market, click, sold. It's there. You have to find a different way to approach the market, and especially.
So that takes a realtor that's really into knowing what's going on.
And knows the market, knows the
other
process,
realtors.
knows when houses are coming on the market.
Right.
So I would say a realtor is important.
Yes.
But then I would also lean into family members. Okay. Maybe somebody says, hey, Kent, I have an opportunity for you. Here's my little townhome, or I know how, but maybe we could work out something privately. Or
Right.
And realtors are great because you basically get a whole package when you get them, right?
Right.
Help with inspectors, help with
Right.
help with lenders, all that in one package. That's really why, if you see the numbers for the percentage
Someone
of
has
people,
to marshal all that process.
the percentage of people that still want to use a realtors is going up,
Yes.
not down.
Yeah,
with
I
everything
see.
else is digitized, but it's still that you need that guiding hand, right? That there's so much knowledge that hasn't really been condensed yet on a laptop. There's too much knowledge that it takes to do that. And at the end of the day, honestly, it's still a people business.
Yes.
It's still a person making the biggest decision of their lives to buy the house. Right. And it's also, on the other side, the biggest decision to sell the house.
Yes, it is.
And so it's hard to look at a Google search and make that button click.
Right.
I've seen those ads where you say, oh, you can press a button and get a mortgage. And I'm like, I'd want somebody to talk to about that. You know what I mean?
Yes. I want to be prepared when I go in. I want to know, yes, who's doing these kinds of homes or townhomes or whatever it might be. Yeah.
Right. So that would be my advice.
Yeah.
We're working diligently. Listen, we have elections coming up.
Yes.
And in the county this year, and the city next year,
questions.
and your state lawmakers. And I would just say, this is the greatest crisis to face our community in 100 years.
Yes.
What are you going to do to help solve that? And I think that's an important question. It's never been more important to ask than now.
And it really evolves around this time, asking the candidate about regulations, because it's regulations that have hurt us so much, right?
I can only go by what the builders tell me.
Yes.
If you'll notice, there's a lot of building happening just outside the city limits.
Yes.
At some point, I'm hoping that our leaders will sit down with those builders and say, why?
Yeah. Yeah, you go out toward the valley. In fact, Connor and I drove out on Sprague Avenue all the way to Liberty Lake. I can't believe the number of apartments that are going on out there.
Have you seen the traffic on Interstate 90 out in the valley in the afternoons?
No.
And especially on weekends?
Yeah.
It's a standstill traffic. You'd think you were in Seattle.
Yeah.
And the biggest reason is because of all the home building that's happening across the border in Idaho.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, we literally in 2 years went from 42,000 cars a day on that highway to 72,000 cars.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that is an enormous, think of the implications of just greenhouse
place
gas
to prepare
emissions.
for that kind of increase.
Right? And that's not slowing.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of great reasons that we can wrap now around the absolute need for housing. And here's the best part. Spokane has done this in the past. We have answered the call.
Yes.
We built 18,000 homes in less than 5 years in this city.
After World War II.
World War II.
Yeah.
You had returning servicemen.
Yep.
You had...
we turned some homes into duplexes.
But we also created an entire different set of lending with the veteran VA loans.
Right.
So that's why on the national level, our organization is working very hard on lending. 28 different proposals we have for just the lending side. Everything from lowering requirements, federal help for smaller loans, and different ways of looking at your credit. And so all of those things we think will contribute, because at the same time, what the challenge we have before us that might be the greatest social challenge is we have the haves and the have-nots. And the haves love, you've seen average family wealth in this community has gone up 200 grand in just the last couple of years. But those are the haves.
Mm-hmm.
Those who don't own a home haven't seen that wealth. So the gap is growing bigger.
Yeah. Well, we want as many people as can afford it one way or the other to own their homes.
Opportunity.
It really is.
Housing opportunity. That's what we just keep pushing for.
It is the American dream. It really is.
It truly is.
And there are some people who travel so much, I get it and so forth, but still, for 90% of our population or more, owning a home really does make a difference.
85% of family wealth in this country comes from homes and home ownership.
Wow. Thank you very much.
You
Good
bet.
to see you, Darin. All right.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for listening. We sing this song as much as we can and just hope that just one person will listen and make a difference.
We need to come back at least once a month to do this, okay?
We'd love to be
There's
here.
so much going on. Thank you. Thank you for watching the Pulse of Spokane. Check on the realtor. Do some interviews out there if you're going to buy or sell, okay? So you're satisfied. Thanks for watching today, everybody. Have a great day.
Are you looking for something generational, timeless, with historical truth? Then We the People Interactive Calendar is right for you, designed for the generations. With over hundreds of historical dates and funny cartoons, We the People Calendar makes the perfect conversation starter about America's history, what the founders intended, and why it's important today. Our mission is to expand conversations as we all learn together in our pursuit of truths. Let us add to the legacy of our ancestors. To get started, scan the QR code at the bottom of the screen and begin your conversation today.
Spokane Realtors are dedicated to helping you find the right place to live. We're more than 2,000 strong, small business men and women guiding you through this most important purchase. We're also your neighbors, giving back thousands in volunteer hours to make our community a better place. We believe owning a home helps you live longer, with stronger families and better neighborhoods. That's who we are, ready to help you find your way home. Call one today.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Tune in every Friday for a new edition of the Pulse of Spokane. Until then, have a great weekend.